would like to start by clarifying what career guidance actually is. Because very, very often we still follow an older perception of career guidance, which is more closely related to a term that is called career orientation, which you might be familiar with. So there is a group of international organizations that come together in the so-called Interagency Working Group on Career Guidance. And the members of this group are the European Union agencies, CEDEFOP, European Training Foundation, so ETF, that's us, the European Commission, the ILO, the OECD, UNESCO, and the World Bank. And jointly, we made a definition and agreed on a definition that is used globally now. So we say career guidance describes the services which help people of any age. So it's not just about young people, of any age to manage their careers and help those people to make educational, training, and occupational choices that are meaningful for them. So career guidance helps people to reflect on their ambitions, interests, qualifications, skills, talents. And that tells us already it goes beyond the mere provision of information. And career guidance helps the people to then relate that knowledge about themselves, about who they are, to who they might become in life and work. Very often career guidance is referred to as sustainable activation. And that's important because it is different from the typical employment counseling that we know from public employment services, which is very important. But it is simply said about matching skills with open vacancies for fast activation. And career guidance is about sustainable activation. So the overall aim of career guidance is to develop the capacities of individuals to manage their careers. So it's about learning career management skills. So career management skills are the outcome of career guidance. Next slide, please. And that brings me obviously to the question of what are career management skills? And I want to set that scene to be sure we all talk about the same things. So when we talk about career management skills, we got to see that in the context of changing labor markets and changing work organizations. Yeah. So while it was enough before to give some information about possible jobs and the learning opportunities to get there for a first transition and a life for job and a job for a life, this is not enough anymore. So career management skills need to be seen as a holistic concept that integrate life skills learning and career learning. It goes beyond, as I just said, personality traits testing, interests testing, and then giving some matching information about jobs and education, learning of CV writing and interviewing skills, because that is not enough anymore. So what we need is actually to help people learn who they are. It's about social emotional skills development, learning to learn skills development, learning to know oneself, because that will help them develop these lasting, durable human and life skills that really help people manage difficult transitions. And this is very important for vulnerable groups in particular, because we send the message that it's about skills. They can learn to manage life and career. The second big learning area is learning about the world of work. And there again, we go beyond learning about jobs and vacancies. It's about developing an understanding of the labor market and its trends, developing a critical understanding of the economy and its impacts on the environment, on society, on oneself. Simple example, I learn the effect of working in the informal economy on myself, my family, my community, my society. Or I learn about labor rights. Two very concrete examples that make a big difference. A third learning area for career management skills development is supporting the creation of an understanding of the world of learning and education. Why is this important? Because it creates an awareness of the relevance of lifelong learning, the positive effects for oneself and others. And finally, of course, practical skills learning, CV writing skills, interviewing skills are important. But traditionally, this was the main focus, and this is not enough anymore. And from what you've seen now, public employment services obviously cannot deliver alone on developing those career management skills that I just described. So we need to look at strategic partnerships with different actors, youth organizations, social workers, non-formal adult learning providers, other community-based organizations to deliver on this. Next slide, please. So what is the relevance of career guidance to the concept of the youth guarantee? Eva mentioned it in the beginning and on Monday. Yeah, you can move to the next slide. So Eva mentioned it briefly. Yeah, that's fine. What the youth guarantee is about. So youth guarantee tackles inactivity and disengagement among young people, and it really aims at leaving no one behind. And there are diverse objectives and phases of the youth guarantee where career guidance plays a very central role. And the first area where career guidance is relevant is the early intervention or prevention phase. To sum up, career education from early age onwards, and I'm talking about primary education, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, that career education from early age on makes a lot of sense and is the key prevention recommendation per se. But of course, also then foreseeing youth and social policy reforms is crucial. So often countries face the problem of not having stable funding for outreach because there is no objective in the youth or social policy documents that dedicate funding to career guidance and outreach outside of the education system. To the next slide. What I found very interesting is that there was basically nothing in primary. And as I said, there is lots of evidence also. Look at the OECD career readiness research. I will put the link later in the chat. It is really important to start already in primary education. Career aspirations are very limited based on gender, based on socioeconomic backgrounds, and everything that does not happen before the age of 10 is quite difficult to change afterwards. So let's discuss that topic a bit later again. So I'm happy about this feedback from your side. So a second area where career guidance is relevant are the outreach and preparation phases of the youth guarantee. Important is here that within the framework of the youth guarantee, partners of the public employment services like local government, community-based organizations, NGOs, they are usually used to reach out to young people not in education, employment, or training, these young needs, because they're closer to this group of people. And the key recommendation is here to train those partners that reach out to young people in the provision of career guidance, because those young people very often need extensive support before they're actually ready to even engage in any type of preparation activities even. And they need much more support to be ready to take up real offers for employment, education, and training. I will say a bit more why this is so important in a moment. The preparation phase right after this outreach phase in the youth guarantee refers to the whole range of employment services normally delivered by public employment services. You know them. It's about profiling, employment counseling, job mediation, short-term trainings on digital skills, on motivation, on other topics, individual action planning, and so on. And young people meet many diverse trainers, big group of different people. They participate in a multitude of activities with different actors. And the recommendation is here that the work of outreach partners, those NGOs, those municipality level actors that first created a contact with young people, they should continue throughout the other phases, through the preparatory phase and even the placement phase in the best case, to really ensure a continuation of this first confidential, trustful contact that young people made, to accompany them through the diverse activities. Why is this important? Because it supports that the young people stay engaged and until they really take up an offer, because they have one trusted person who is there for them as a critical friend. And the more official institutional relationship with the public employment service can in this way be facilitated, because it's a different world. For example, and I think they are good examples, Germany and Austria have a coaching program to accompany young people from outreach till the first year of formal vocational education and training, so that goes even beyond the offer. And in summary, working in partnership between public employment services and community-based organizations is really key, and civil society organizations, NGOs, should be a lasting partner, because they are close to the group of young people, not in employment, education, and training. And therefore, they should be trained not just in informing about the youth guarantee, not just in how to registering the young needs, but also in providing the so important development of career management skills as per my prior definition. And why? Because it helps the young people be self-directed, be motivated to take action and take ownership of action. So this career guidance work actually comes as a very important a very important addition into a technical process, out of which many young people, young needs, often fall out because it's just a technical process. Next slide, please. So let's look a bit deeper into what makes outreach successful. Simple outreach informs about youth guarantee and the services public employment services offer. It pre-registers needs to the youth guarantee schemes and sometimes does some motivational training, CV writing, interviewing. This makes needs to an object of a policy. A very different approach is providing career guidance when already being in the outreach phase, because that makes the young person a subject to their career development and life planning. So providing career management means to develop career management skills as by my prior definition. It means support to develop social emotional skills, critical understanding of self, of the labor market, of the world of learning, and its relevance to the individuals. So this helps to empower the young person to re-engage into learning and work in a self-directed way. And that makes all the difference in the world. Sustainability in career guidance means helping the young need find their way. It's different from fast activation, to find their way. And the focus must not be fulfilling the quantitative placement data. It's really about the young people. Providing such services during outreach helps young people to be ready to take up offers. Also, those reaching out to young people and providing guidance establish trust with these young people. And that should be the key element, this trust building element. And it helps them to accompany these young people throughout the next steps. Finally, it is important that we accept that this is not the technical process of informing, registering, offer uptake, but this is a process of trust building, re-engaging young people with education and work. And surely we need to ensure measuring progress and the success. And we will be able to share with you later in the year a very concrete tool. So ETF at the moment is developing a methodology and tools to measure the quality and progress of outreach. So we will share that later in the year in an event with you. Next slide, please. Regarding outreach to young people, not in education, training, and employment, there is a lot of experience from EU countries, also countries in the Western Balkans, in particular North Macedonia, and also from the ILO. And the two reports that you see here are really interesting sources to look at. So I will share, of course, the presentation with you. So take a look at them afterwards. Let's move to the next slide, please. It was interesting to see that there is quite a big group of youth, special youth caseworkers in public employment service, and that there is active outreach. So that's really positive. Let's look at some inspirational practice in outreach. Ideally, countries have an outreach strategy, which is very rare. But having an outreach strategy is really important because such a strategy would regulate the cooperation and coordination between various involved stakeholders. It should obviously clarify the roles of the different stakeholders, the joint communication approach, regulate the communication between the different levels, national, regional, local. It should clarify the messages to send. It's important to have the local level actively involved in all these developments to really ensure the success of outreach. Important is also that the strategy is flexible so that it allows the implementing partners to adapt their approaches to the needs of the clients they work with and the particularities of the regions. And reaching out means using obviously a multitude of channels, depending on the needs of the different target groups. So very successful has been peer-to-peer support, using target group representatives that went through the youth guarantee before to talk to other group members of that group. In Bulgaria, for example, they trained former needs from the group of Roma and Sinti to then reach out as youth mediators. One-stop shops where you have different services cooperating in Finland, Sweden, France, Croatia are a good way to offer a low threshold access without official appointments and so on. Mobile units in Kazakhstan, traveling to remote and rural areas are very useful service. Traditional street worker approaches, like in Spain, going to places where young needs are. And of course, data collection is very important to find out where are these young needs. Next slide, please. Then moving to online activities. Spain and Italy have one single entry website, for instance. Belgium offers online guidance through special youth platforms. What's interesting here to mention is young needs that are not registered with public employment service often change their address and their phone numbers, but their social media accounts like Facebook or Twitter, they change not that often. So Slovenia has a dedicated Facebook page. Italy has a service app. Portugal uses YouTube videos. So using these social media can help to reach these groups. Obviously, involving young needs into the design of communication approaches and strategies is an absolute must. And to use also the word of mouth information distribution between young peers is a very good approach. Bulgaria and Estonia set up special awareness raising activities about the youth guarantee, using also radio and TV are very useful channels. When it comes to the so-called long-term needs, those who drop out regularly of registries of public employment service, Luxembourg made a very smart move. They installed a kind of monthly tracking to see who falls out of the system, and then they directly intervene and follow up with those who dropped out.
Yeah.
Ireland has special services for young needs with disabilities. UK and Latvia support young offenders coming from prison with special support. So in general, outreach should be personalized. That is clear. So that should also be written in such a strategy, the methodology used, yeah. And then combining outreach with career guidance has then the positive effect of what I mentioned before. It gives the agency to the young person. All of the above needs to be designed in the spirit of youth work, so meaning non-judgmental approaches, voluntary participation, and it's important to remember that we work for the young people and not for fulfilling quantitative placement data. Next slide, please. Portugal and Latvia, for example, in the EU have developed a fully fledged outreach strategy. Other countries have only different outreach approaches defined, but having such a fully fledged strategy is definitely an advantage. The crucial difference here is that a full strategy is budgeted and part of a law or a youth act or strategy, while other activities are always project-based, and that makes the huge difference. Denmark also followed such an approach with a national policy regulating outreach. And in a previous slide, you have the link to the ILO guideline for outreach strategy. I won't go into detail here because there is a lot you can find in these documents. But important is that outreach includes working also in a preventive way. So outreach strategy should include that you work in a preventive way with school students, with parents, with representatives of school, including the guidance practitioners. And as a general point, often countries have troubles offering quality placements in either learning or work. And I believe in the outreach phase, the focus shall much more lie on supporting individuals and their families in finding their way. So the focus shall really be on developing those career management skills that I mentioned and not be focused the quick placement, because often the lack of quality offer then demotivates and simply sends the message, remaining in informality or in some social benefit scheme is better than being actually placed in learning or work again. So this career management skills development helps develop this agency and intrinsic motivation to take one's lives into one's hands. Next slide, please. Coming back to the outreach strategy, some common features to summarize, yeah? So mechanisms to identify and contact young needs should be defined there. Data sharing, partnerships are important points here for getting information about needs, as well as all the physical outreach activities that I mentioned before. Then in-depth assessment of individual needs of the young people is another core element, because it's not a homogeneous group. The group of young needs is very inhomogeneous with different needs. And the description of tailored service and program delivery with a special focus on these career management skills development, including life skills, should be integrated in a strategy. And of course, then monitoring and evaluation approaches. Next slide, please. And that's then my last one. Looking in particular at partnerships for outreach now. The difficulty of many public employment services, also due to the limited resources most services have in countries, is to manage these many different stakeholders to cooperate with. And we've mentioned them, so key outreach partners are civil society organizations, other community-based organizations, local municipalities, providing youth and social work, life skills development. And I want to give a couple of examples here that are interesting. So looking at Germany, for example, they developed a self-assessment tool for all partners of public employment services to assess the cooperation quality. It's a nice way, I would say. Also, Latvia has a good example. Latvia made municipalities at local level responsible for setting up agreements with outreach providers because they're closer to this group of young needs. So it's also an interesting point. So there are different approaches. Another way of successfully managing partnerships is through ensuring sustainable funding, the point that I raised in the beginning. Finland, for example, provides annual grants to municipalities for this outreach work, and that helps making outreach a standard service and not a project-based service. Portugal, on the other side, set up public-private partnerships with companies like McDonald's, for example, and they use their corporate responsibility activities to help reach young people. Again, and logically, an outreach strategy needs to clarify the roles, the responsibilities, the objectives of the stakeholders to formalize this cooperation and collaboration. And I think really giving civil society organizations, community-based organizations, an official role is really key. So I stop here and give back to Eva, and thanks a lot for your discussion. I hope it was interesting. Thanks a lot for your attention. I hope it was interesting.